Welcome back to the garage, guys. Got a special episode for you today. We're gonna unveil to you Project Ethel. But before we go any further, let me pause the 70s porno music because this is a serious thing, unlike that intro. This car is a 1975 Chevrolet Vega. It has been highly modified. As a lot of you guys know, this thing's supposed to have a 6-shooter sitting right here. We've got a beer keg in the front of this car. So obviously it's in rough shape. It did not come from Pebble Beach. This thing's it's been through it. It had a rough life. It did find its way into a ditch. We've got some frame damage, some body work we got to do. But right now, what I want to show you guys is what's going on back here. So I don't have detailed history on this car, but from what I understand, this thing was built by a high school shop teacher back in the 80s. It's supposed to have been featured in some car magazines, but I've yet to prove it. But what they did is pretty amazing. So they did a ton of custom frame work and put the engine in the back. I've got some photos and stuff I'll show you guys later of the setup they had, but it was a twin turbo small block Chevy with an Oldsmobile Tornado transmission. So the weight of the engine and transmission actually sits a little bit behind the axle. I don't know about you guys, but that sounds like we're gonna have a good time with this car. I've got the transmission out of the car, but unfortunately they did not include the engine. So I'm having to put together my own small block Chevy. I'm gonna go over this thing on the next video, guys. It's gonna be insane, and it's gonna be the reason we call this thing Project Ethel. So this car has this really cool airbrushing down the side, but the body itself's in kind of rough shape. It's built in the 80s, so they believed in Bondo. They thoroughly believed in Bondo in the 80s. But the interior of the car is actually top-notch considering. So the seats are in really good shape. They're actually really comfortable. The dash and everything, it's got a little bit of a crack there. And it's my understanding that these gauges are not factory. They definitely look cool in there. I'm gonna have to take it all out and see what's behind it because we got a lot of wiring to figure out in this car. If you check out the steering wheel here, it does have a GT horn button. This thing may be a Vega GT, I don't know. It's definitely got some nice points on the interior. If you'll notice here, this is an air car and we have an air box on the firewall still. This right here, though, has probably been the coolest surprise of the whole car for me. I mean, this is a rear-engine Vega, and I'm impressed with this. It's got a built-in PA and CB radio into this whole thing. I don't know if it still works, but we're going to play around with it, and we have to get it working if it's possible. So like I said, the interior's in pretty good shape. It does have a firewall. This is actually some rather robust-looking glass that they use to separate the passengers from the engine bay. Things aren't quite as attractive when you look at it on this side. They've got all this insulation and everything in here. It does look as though they did have the AC and power steering work, so somebody made a driver out of this car. This is not just a race car. Now those control arms, I have been told, are from a Chevy Corvair. This thing's got these sick looking turbines on the back here. They're old school unilugs, but this is a 5-lug Corvair pattern. And up here on the front end, we still got the 4-lug Vega pattern. And these are actually offset wheels. These are kind of skinny compared to those. They got a real deep offset in the rear. So it's got all kinds of holes in the back of it here. Some intentional, some not so much. So in the engine bay of this car, it's got some really nice looking welds, some well-built structure. It's got a few bits and pieces left over the old setup. These two big coolers here are actually transmission coolers. I got some kind of fuel filter there. I think the fuel pump's still down there on the rail. And don't overlook those 6x9s hanging out in the back of that firewall. So here's that AC box I was telling you this thing has. It has the potential to have AC. It's just time and money. But what's really cool under here is the beer keg. They've actually, I guess, have this to help weight the front end down to keep it on the ground. They've got the spare mounted on top of it here. Looks like that thing is about as old as the car. Now at some point I want to see if I can't get this thing open and see what's in there. I guarantee it's not good, whatever it is. So I don't know if you guys can tell on camera, but the whole front end is pushed to the passenger side. This side here looks a bit like a banana, so it's definitely going to have to be put on a frame machine. It's not a big deal. We just want to make sure we get it squared up before we start putting it on the highway. Believe it or not, this car does have a clean title. So the way it was explained to me, what happened to this car, and I don't know how long ago this was, but the previous owner might have been out having a good time in it, and it had a big cam and some big turbos, had a bit of a lag situation. So the car was at some speed when everything kicked in, and this thing actually pulled the wheels off the ground. He lost control of it and put it into the ditch. I guess the left front hit a ditch. When he did that, I was told this is from his shoulder hitting the door. We actually might have to replace the door because of it, because this thing's hurt. It ain't looking good. So while the body's not in that great a shape, and we're gonna have to do some rust stoppage and some rust prevention to keep this thing in one piece, the floor pans under the car actually look really good, as does the frame. So we've got a good solid foundation, and these old cars are rather popular, so I can get patch panels, quarters, roof skins, all of that stuff's available in the aftermarket. So I've got a lot of sorting to do still. I've got boxes of parts sitting around. I've got stuff I don't even know where it goes, so we're gonna get all this sorted out. But as far as the project itself, the plan of attack is to get the engine in the car, get everything in there plumbed, and get the engine running. And once I get it to that point, then I'm gonna start working on getting the body work done. Not necessarily the rust, but get the frame straight and get the front clip installed. I've got a couple pieces for the front end. I've got the grille, this header panel, some headlight buckets, and you saw the fender on the passenger side. The problem is everything underneath it has been exposed to the element for what looks like years, and I've got no hinges, I've got no bolts. I don't even know how the hood opens and closes on this thing. So we're gonna take our time with that once we get it running, but I wanna drive it down the road first. I mean, I can't wait for the first test drive in this thing. I mean, who knows what's gonna happen. So I guess I should have pointed this out earlier in the video, but the big block Miata is gone. It is out of here. That thing went to its new home up in North Florida. I got a feeling we haven't seen the last of that car. So we'll see. I'll let you guys know as I find out what they're doing with it. But for you big block fans, we still got the big block Lightning here, and we've got the 94 over there with the E40D 460 setup. We're gonna keep those big block projects going. They're just not moving quite as fast as this, because this car, believe it or not, is gonna be ready in November for the Cletus and Cars Burnout Contest. So I think you guys would agree we got our hands full with this one, but I think I'm gonna be able to pull it off. So what I've got here is all my small block stuff. I've been rounding up parts this week, trying to get some kind of foundation for what we're gonna run. All I'm gonna tell you so far about what we have is our goal is 14:1 compression. And on that note, guys, I gotta end this video off right there. I got a whole lot of work to do. So as always, guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.